Well, thank you, Senator. And of course, they have every right to be mad, and they have every right to be frustrated, as you are, that the work you're so involved in as the leading Republican on the Budget Committee just hasn't been able to produce a result. And we're unlikely to have a budget again this year. I was just asked by a reporter on the way walking over here. You mentioned I was in the House for some time, and I was before I came to the Senate. And the question was, well, for somebody like you who's been in Washington, wasn't the Tea Party a big challenge? And I said, no, the Tea Party was not a big challenge. They were a great opportunity for us to have someone out there talking about the imperative that we get this spending under control. I visited with them about a struggle that you and I and Senator Isakson were involved in before our good friend Senator Barrasso got to the Senate, where we actually took on entitlement spending in 2005. And as I recall that effort, I got lots of calls on entitlement spending reforms, where we cut entitlement spending the only time in a decade by $40 billion. I got lots of calls, and not one of them was supportive of cutting spending. Every single call, and as far as I know, every phone I had rang everywhere I had a phone for 100 days. As far as I know, all the time, no matter how early we came in or how late we were leaving, those phones were all ringing, and every call was, don't cut my program. As Senator Isakson said, as he was talking to the friends we're seeing today from hospitals around the country, the ones from Georgia, we have to look at everything, and we have to look at ways to produce better results. The government is the last place left in America, and this relates to government, I believe, at almost every level, and almost every government at every level, where we measure how much we care about something based on how much we spend on it instead of the results we get. Everybody else in America 20 years ago made the decision if they were going to be competitive, they had to produce a better product, a better result, and spend less money producing that better result. Only the government still thinks the other way, and we do this without a plan, apparently. You correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a student of the budget in ways that aren't exceeded by anybody in the Senate, in my view. But I think last year, the work we're still trying to finish, last year's work, I think the only time in the history of the Budget Act where neither house of the Congress passed a budget. There have been times when both of them passed them and couldn't agree on them. There have probably been times when somebody didn't pass one, but never a time when nobody passed a budget, nobody passed a single one of the 12 appropriations bills it takes to run the government. I mean, how irresponsible can you be? And now we've got this situation where we're spending so much more money than we're taking in, and the numbers are so big that they're so big it's hard to be as afraid of them as we should be, because who knows how much money $3.8 trillion is. It's not just senators and House members. I don't think the Secretary of the Treasury really knows how much money that is, but we're spending way more than we're taking in. And have we ever, Senator, have we ever had a time before when neither house of the Congress passed a budget that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of it, and we've now 715 days without a budget, and this is particularly problematic since we're facing such a acknowledged debt crisis. Secretary of Treasury Geithner came before the Budget Committee. I asked him a number of questions. I asked him about the Rogoff and Reinhart study that says when your debt reaches over 90% of your economy, 90% of GDP, that it causes the economy to slow down, be dragged down by that debt, 1% of GDP. So if it was going to increase it 3%, it would increase it 2%. And this amounts to, another study says, 1 million jobs. 1% of GDP growth is 1 million new jobs added. So it's very serious. And I asked him, was that true? By the way, I think my colleagues are aware that we're past 95% of GDP today. We're over the 90% mark, and by September 30th are projected to be 100%. So we're well above the number. And this was the answer. The true number is not the public debt, but the gross debt, and the gross debt would be 100% by the end of September. Mr. Geithner says, yes, he agrees with the study that shows it pulls down growth. And added, it's in many ways more serious than that because it could lead to a debt crisis, the kind of thing Erskine Bowles, the president's choice to head the debt commission, is warned it could happen. So we have a responsibility to lead the nation that avoids us undertaking a crisis that we can see coming. I mean, we have a clear and present danger to the American Republic, this debt. And Mr. Bowles, a businessman, President Clinton's chief of staff, the choice to head the debt commission by President Obama, told us we're facing the most predictable debt crisis in our history, and it could happen within 2 years, he testified. So I think this is really serious. So I think we've got to change the business, and I think the momentum from the American people in this past election was basically a statement that you guys, we don't know what the problem is. It's all convoluted, but I just believe, as you indicated at the beginning, that the American people have a right to say, get it together and fix this problem.
And if the gentleman would yield for just another moment, I'd say, you know, while we have a hard time dealing with these big numbers, and I think they approach now $3.8 trillion in spending and $2.2 trillion in money coming in. So we're adding, we're adding $44 billion a day. We're borrowing $4 billion a day. So in the time we had a continuing resolution for 10 days to try to decide how we cut spending, we borrowed more money in that 10 days than we saved in that 10 days. And then people say, well, that's draconian. It's terrible. You can't say, we can't spend this much money and continue to do it. And if we don't know what, you know, if your family was bringing in $22,000 a year and spending $38,000 a year, and you'd already borrowed way more money than any bank should lend you, as you just suggested, you'd know that that was a problem you couldn't sustain very long. If your business was bringing in $2.2 million a year and spending $3.8 million a year, you know you're not going to be in business very long. And those are the kind of real world situations we have multiplied by thousands of times, but it has to be solved. And the blueprint to solve that is the budget. We don't have one. Your significant responsibility for the country is to be in that budget fight, and I know you're there, and I know you're frustrated that we don't have the blueprint, but we need a blueprint, and then we need to spend lots of time on this floor and in committees figuring out how do we produce a better result and spend less money, and what is the federal government doing that just simply isn't well done and shouldn't be done, and constitutionally there's no authorization to do, and stop doing that. And I'm pleased to be in this fight with you and with our friend Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you. It's